Internet, my name is Lave and I watched Spider-Man Far From Home, which is directed by Jon Watts, who was also the director on Spider-Man Homecoming. This one picks up after the events of Avengers Endgame. Spoilers for Avengers Endgame if you're like the one person who hasn't seen it, but as far as Spider-Man Far From Home goes, this one is going to be spoiler free, so that means I can't really say much. So with Iron Man gone after reversing the snap, Peter Parker is still coming to terms with the loss of his mentor and is looking forward to going on a school trip to Europe with his friends. But a new threat shows up in the form of 4 elemental monsters, so reluctantly Spider-Man is dragged back into action. But help is on hand from a mysterious new superhero called Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio. So I really enjoyed Spider-Man Homecoming, which properly brought Spider-Man into the MCU, but it also felt like its own Spider-Man movie, and arguably this one has got more to do this time round. It's got to answer the ramifications of the snap and Tony's death, which it does. It's also got to give us a flavour of what the MCU is going to be like moving forward, which it does, and it's also got to feel like its own Spider-Man movie, which it is. But I have to say, I didn't quite enjoy this one as much as Homecoming. From a filmmaking point of view, I don't think this one is quite as good. It's definitely got the same sense of high school humour and comedy as Homecoming, but it doesn't feel as fresh this time around. In fact, it felt like they were trying too hard to make it funny, often doubling down on a lot of the jokes. The only examples I can give without giving away any spoilers is the teacher, who's played by the same guy in this one, who had a couple of really funny lines in Homecoming, and it's like, oh yeah, he worked in that, so let's give him more to do in this one, only this time around it's not as funny. On top of that, there's another teacher who's basically facilitating the same role, dropping one-liners and quips. There's also a couple of like slapsticky moments when Spider-Man, for example, hits his head on the bell tower bell, falls over, and then he gets up and hits his head on it again. It's like, the humour didn't always work in this one for me, whereas in Homecoming I felt like most of it worked. I still love Ned though, who's a little bit preoccupied in this one to be the guy in the chair, and the majority of the actors playing the kids are okay. You've also got Nick Fury, Maria Hill turns up, Happy and Aunt May have a little bit of a relationship going on, but I did have an issue with the whole Peter and MJ romance. I think their performances are fine, don't get me wrong. I still love Tom Holland as Peter Parker, and I like Zendaya as this universe's interpretation of MJ, and they do have a couple of like awkward romantic moments which I think are meant to be awkward because they're 16-year-old kids after all. But to me, it felt like Peter's infatuation with MJ has come out of nowhere. She wasn't really on his radar at the end of Homecoming, and right at the start of this film, he's like, I want to tell her how I feel about her. I get there's been some time passed, but they've been gone for 5 years because of the snap, so it is picking up from Homecoming, and it's just something that I feel like they should have developed throughout the movie, like not from the off. Let's talk about Mysterio for a second, who's making his silver screen debut here, and they nailed it. I love the way he looks, the stuff he does, and Jake Gyllenhaal does a great job. Who doesn't love Jake Gyllenhaal? If I get the chance and the time to do a spoiler review for this, then I'll obviously talk about his character and other aspects of the film which I liked and didn't like in more detail. What I will say for now though is that the film does connect to the other MCU films in a surprisingly clever way, and there are some pretty big revelations and some questions to answer moving forward, especially in the mid and end credits, including one moment where I literally went, no way, that is awesome. So that's my thoughts on Spider-Man Far From Home, and pause the video if you want to take a closer look at my enjoyment tracker now. As my enjoyment tracker shows, I was reasonably engaged and entertained in the first half of the film when I was really expecting to love it from the off, but there is a turning point in the film where it really started to deliver, and I was like, yeah, this is the Spider-Man movie that I really wanted. And despite these criticisms, I'm still on board with this version of Marvel's Spider-Man, and I still think it's got a lot to give. As I say, I will try to do a spoiler review for this, but I've also got Midsummer coming up to watch this this weekend, so I will try my best. In the meantime, thanks very much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. If you can, give it a like and don't forget to share the Lave.
Subscribe.